Hello, Bronwynlund here from BronHolm Tours. I'm just right in the middle of the island, in the forest reserve that's called Elminin, and right behind me is the castle ruins of Gamleborg, or Old Castle, is the translation into English from Danish. And I'm actually standing at the southwest entrance, and we're going to go into the ruins and walk around and along what would have been the battlements of the castle. So I hope you enjoy the tour. So first of all, I just want to give you a little bit of history about the castle. It is a Viking ruin. So it was built in the Viking era, and the stronghold may have resulted from the island being taken over by a foreign ruler, as its mid-island location would have enabled an occupying force to rule the whole of Bornholm. In the course of the 10th century, the entire island came under the rule of the Danish crown, and Gamleborg was used to protect royal property. Finds show that the castle was permanently inhabited in various periods. The 25 hectare stronghold Plateau is 270 metres long and 110 metres wide. The plateau is surrounded by a thick embankment of earth and stone. The stronghold was accessed through two entrances, south and north, where the slopes were gentlest. A pond inside the north entrance served as the fortification's vital water supply. The stronghold was reinforced to the west by a 2 metre thick, 275 metre long and up to 6 metre high fieldstone wall. So if you look out along, this is the west side of the castle. And just imagine a 6 metre high wall on top of that, what has already been built up there. So it would have been an incredibly impressive structure in the day. And that was presumably around 1100. So this is undoubtedly Bornholm's oldest stone structure. And it's believed that Gamleborg was abandoned around 1150. So let's go in and have a bit of an explore. Now it's very misty today, which also gives us a completely different feeling of the island. Most people come to the island in the summer, and it's very sunny, obviously, but it's the middle of winter now, and actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do this walk is because you can see through the trees down onto the plateau, and it gives a good feeling for how it would have been when all the trees would have been cleared in order to keep the field of vision for approaching enemies. But there's three paths here. The one off to the left goes down along the west curtain wall and around, and we're going to follow that around, and we're going to come all the way back around and up this path here. And then we're going to go through the middle of the castle and have a look at that vital water supply. And then I'm going to go out through the northeast entrance of the castle and follow the eastern curtain wall around the base, just so you can get a feel for just how high up this castle is on the plateau, and just what an impressive structure it must have been back in the day. So we're going to have to use our imagination today and imagine what this castle and what it must have been like when it was in full swing. and just the view that's out towards the outside of the castle, you certainly would have had a massive advantage in seeing your enemies approaching from this height back in the Viking era. But being very misty today, it doesn't really give that feeling, so I might have to come back and do this walk again on a clearer day. But in the summer, which was, you know, the raiding time traditionally for the Vikings, they would have had to have kept all of the surrounding fields and areas clear of trees, because of course trees are something that enemies can hide behind. It can be pretty effective with a bow and an arrow and a good tree. You can see right down into there's sort of a natural moat going on, so from a strategic defence point of view, this would have been a pretty cool place to defend your kingdom from. Would have got a pretty good aim with the old boiling oil, hot oil, back in the day. Does oil boil? I guess it does. But yes, it's just a natural defensive position from here. Fantastic. Of course, I guess if you wanted to take the castle you were attacking by surprise, you could choose not to do a summer raid, and in a mild winter when it wasn't too dangerous to cross the sea in your Viking ship or boat, as they probably were more like in those days, you could actually choose to strike during the winter, if it was a mild winter, I guess. And then you could use this sort of weather to your advantage. But it's interesting that the castle was abandoned because it obviously was never conquered, which is interesting in itself. The other castle that is near here, a castle ruin called Lilleborg, or Little Castle, because it's a much smaller ruin, it's actually better preserved. That one was burnt to the ground, so that was the end of that. But this one was just abandoned, fell into disuse. But I'm actually just wondering whether that wasn't because the seat of Lund, the bishop of Lund, became very powerful about that time, and that was when the big castle up in the north of the island, Hammershus, was built. So maybe there was some sort of treaty with the king or something, I don't know. Anyway, I can always Google it. So here we are at the north. These steps are a bit precarious, I think I'll just take the path. So here we are at the north east entrance, but I'm just going to go straight past and keep going and walk down the east side of the castle ruin, and then we'll walk back through the middle to that entrance and go out that way, or that exit, as those things were exiting it. So once again, you can see that you have an incredible advantage all the way around the castle. A great field of vision. There's also plenty of water around, quite a few streams. So it would have been quite an interesting, active place in the 10th century. Pop over this fallen log. But today is a bit special. It's a bit of a misty day, and it's not often people see Bornholm like this, because it's the low season. So we'll be finishing off the tour on that path that's just down there to our left, down the bottom there, and that will just give us an idea of just how high up this plateau is. I'll do this walk again on a non-misty winter day, because we're coming up to the valley now, or the dale, Echo Dale, and it's usually a very nice view between the trees from here out across the dale. But not today. But I'll come back and do another film. But I'll just walk the other way around, so you get a different perspective. But my plan was to actually stop at this bench, so you could see out across the valley. I can sit down. See out across the valley to the beautiful, there's a lovely farm, and in the summer of course there's cows and things grazing, and you can sort of see off across the island, but not today. It's just a different atmosphere. Right, so now we've literally walked the full circle around the old ruins. There's a bit of a path here that I don't know whether this must have been some sort of other entrance or something that broke down, but there's some foundations there on the right that make this look like it must have been something else as well. But that's just the stairs up to the castle from the valley where the car park is, an important access point. So now we're going to go through the middle of the ruin, which is not dreadfully exciting in itself, but we can have a look at that vital water supply and sort of come out at the other end and then walk around the bottom of the ruin. So I guess there would have been a lot of timber buildings, timber structures and houses, blacksmith, all the things that would be needed to keep a busy Viking stronghold going, stables with horses. It's interesting because you always think of Vikings as people you always think of Vikings as people who, you know, cleaved the sea and went off raping and pillaging and settling other nations. But here we have a Viking stronghold in the middle of an island. It's pretty landlocked actually, particularly for back in those days when, you know, to go 10 kilometres anywhere was pretty hard work. So there we have the vital water supply over to the left. That would have been where they drew the water in times of siege. So now we're going to exit via the northeast entrance and then just follow the east side of the ruin down along and back into the valley and then wrap up the walking tour. I do have another walking tour called Gamleborg, where I continue along the path and go out to the other castle ruin. So check that walk out as well. Lilleborg, Gamleborg. the moss is almost fluorescent, so green. Strange. So now we're sort of exiting the park area, the what's it called, National Park area, and coming back into private grazing land. So this is now part of the farm that you can't really see over there through the mist. Obviously it's a public byway, but this part of the area is farmland. And what a beautiful place to have your farm. This is just magic. So here we are, we're coming up to the bottom of the stairs that go back up to the castle ruin. And this whole area is called Elmingen, and it's one of the most beautiful parts of the island, actually, right in the centre. Well worth a visit. Would have to be number 2 on your itinerary after Hammershus. I think if you're only going to be spending a few days on Bornholm, you'd be best to spend a bit of time up north. One day up north visiting Hammershus and that area, Vang, and the quarry, Vang granite quarry, if that's your thing. And then definitely your second day here in the middle of the island in Elmingen. Try and do 3 days so that at least you can spend a day on the beach. That's also important when you're on holidays. But I'd actually also like to hear opinions of others who've been to Bornholm, what their favourite places are and if they'd like me to film them. So comments and constructive feedback to this work is always welcome. So here we are back at the stairs, and they go up to the castle ruin, which you can see at the top of the stairs. So I hope you enjoyed this tour. This is Bronwynlund signing off from BronHolm Tours, and see you later.